press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
Hello everybody on Facebook, and thank you all subscribers for coming. I'll try to keep this as chilled out and casual as our Hafta normally is. So this is the 200th episode of Hafta. We have done 199 episodes so far. I'll just tell you what Hafta started off as. It was an exercise in transparency because as in the mission statement, which is a very grand sounding thing, and I'm sure Manu will have a very interesting take on what the hell is a vision statement. The fact that you have a vision is a surprise in itself. But Manu, I'll introduce the guests at length later, but the whole idea of Hafta was it's an exercise in transparency because at least I believed when, we set up News Laundry and Madhu and all of us had sat and discussed this, that objectivity is not possible. We can make transparency happen because we are the sum total of our experiences, our socialization, our worldview is shaped by all that. So, we will have prejudices, we will have biases, we will have, a compromised view and different from another. And Hafta was a good way of making that transparent. So it was a good way of making it transparent so people see where we are coming from and they can adjust individual perceptions and reports through that prism. But it so happened, and as we get a lot of mails every week, people have started listening to the Hafta to get the news of the week, which is not a good idea. So we're trying to fix that and trying to make it more current because, there are some developing stories. People say, you don't have the latest on that. That wasn't what the Hafta was for. We have other podcasts for that, and we'll be starting more podcasts for that. But that's why Hafta happened. It's a chat, it's an informal chat, and at that time, the staff of News Laundry was just 4 or 5 people. So we sat together and chit-chatted, and that was that. We'll have half-hour question-answer. People on Facebook, you can also post your questions, and Snigdha, my wonderful colleague, will tell us your questions. Those that are worthy of being repeated will be repeated and asked. So you guys can tell us what you're doing right, wrong, not just questions, a lot of discussions. Someone doesn't have a question, they just have a comment, and then everyone's saying, why are you giving a comment? Well, we say we even want your comments. So just keep them short. On that note, Angrez apna lagana, News Laundry apna Hafta, kabhi nahi chhodte. When the public pays, the public is served. And when advertisers pay, advertisers served. On our 200th episode of Hafta, we have Manu Joseph. Many of you, in fact, all of you probably already know Manu. Manu is a writer and a journalist. He has won the... Manu, let me allow you to introduce yourself because I'll do the Wikipedia thing. So Manu has his latest book, Leila. I personally really like Manu's writing. I think it's amongst the finest. I think he has a very provocative and interesting mind. Sometimes if there is a debate happening, he will give an angle to it which you may not have thought of. Or if you have thought of, you will not utter it. You'll wait for someone else to say it. So he does that for us.
I think, yeah, and then you can just retweet it.
Then you can retweet it.
I'm not saying it, I'm just
Artists aren't endorsements. So that's Manu Joseph for you. He, till recently, was a columnist for the Mint Lounge as well. But now, Manu, what are you doing?
I'm finishing my first non-fiction, as it's called. I think it's strange that there's a whole genre of literature which doesn't have the good sense to give itself a name. It's identified as something it's not, by something it's not. So, but anyway, since everybody knows what non-fiction is, it's actually journalism between covers for which people would be willing to pay, So I think that's how I look at non-fiction, as it's called. I'm working with some people who are interested in making TV series and films out of my books. So that's an interesting phase.
We will discuss that, books, into miniseries and films and how that translates. Other panelists here, Anand Vardhan, our in-house genius. Many of you have heard him and read him. He has some wonderful and interesting insights. Even he gives some perspectives that often are not the popular ones. And I'm not talking about left, right, conservative, but just an angle that hasn't really been explored.
He has maximum fans also. Everyone loves Anand. All the letters are always praising him.
Praising him. And Manisha Pandey, our award-winning journalist. Today I will have to say that. Anand is trying not to react.
When she says that he has a lot of fans, he's doing...
So Manisha has been one of the ones since we started Hafta, I think, other than Madhu and me.
Yeah.
She's the one who's been there from the beginning. Although Anand's one of the founding team of News Laundry. Then in the middle he went and I don't know whether he was taking civil service exam or... But then he's back and...
Already failed by then.
But we are glad he's back. So yeah, that's Manisha, who's done many a story for us, and now she has a fantastic show called Nuisance, which I hope you watch. Madhu Trehan, legendary journalist, founder India Today, News Track, TV Today, and News Laundry. She gave me my first job when I was 19 and made sure that I was a hard nut to crack, which is good because she prepared me for Twitter. Fuck you bastards. So, thank you, Madhu. So, if you could handle Madhu at 19, Twitter's a fucking piece of cake. So,
yeah, it was bad.
So, I'll just quickly tell you what all we'll discuss. Usually on Hafta, we discuss like 7-8 things. We'll keep it a little less this time because we want you to interact with, our guest. And I know many of you have come to see Manu. So I will not take that time away from you. So there was a huge march today, a farmers' march, as you know, which reached India Gate, Ramlila Maidan. And we had some reporters here who were there who tell us it wasn't as big as was promised.
Yeah, it was supposed to be about 2 lakh, but it's about 16,000 people.
Or maybe 20,000.
Yeah.
So maybe we can give that a few minutes. Then, there was this whole gotra debate that happened. What's his name? Rahul Gandhi's gotra.
Which made primetime news.
And then Smriti Irani tweeted, "My gotra is Kaushal, sir, as is my father's, as was his father's, and his father's, and his father's. My husband and children are Zoroastrian, so can't have a gotra. The sindoor I wear is my belief as a practicing Hindu. Now get back to your life, Dhanyavad." So that's Smriti Irani at her understated best on Twitter. She was made for Twitter.
She actually said, "Now get back to your life." It's just say it. Sounded spontaneous, but
isn't your entire family line supposed to have your gotra? I mean, that's the whole point.
Actually, we'll have a little... I don't know much about gotras, so... Manu, you're Christian? What are you?
That's what they say. I mean, that's what they say on Twitter.
Don't label him.
Joseph.
No, but do you have gotra?
No, we don't have gotra.
Okay, so...
Actually, I discovered my gotra at my daughter's wedding ceremony because the pandit asked, "Aapka gotra kaun hai?" Then everybody went shuffling around.
Kaun hai,
kya hai? Aapka gotra kya hai? So everyone went shuffling around, and then my husband's father said, "Kaushal hai."
You and Smriti have the same gotra. Your gotra sisters, yo.
So you're related at some level. You can never marry Smriti Irani.
What a relief.
So rather than go through the whole list of things, I'll just quickly give one line and then we'll discuss each of them at length. Then I'd like to, in fact, I want to start with this before we get into the Gotra debate. The economic benefits and dangers of subscription-based model, because I keep pushing that. And there are some dangers as well, and I think we have, some very bright minds to tell us what the dangers are. And let's see where that takes us. Then we have the Pakistan-Kartarpur corridor, which recently you've seen all that happened. Sidhu went, Miss Badal went, and she had a very emotional speech to give, and Sidhu had, So I'd like to know, from the panel where that is going. Specifically, should there be exchange of artists and sports and stuff in the backdrop of terrorism? And does literary translate to good cinema? And Manisha insisted how do foreign correspondents cover issues in India, because she thought the way this whole... So, Manu, let's start with you. Let's just first negotiate news, because we were discussing that even before. Do you think subscription is the answer to a flawed advertising model, or do you think the danger is that an organization will get boxed in because ideologically inclined people will decide the agenda, what should be covered?
Well, today we have two kinds of subscription models. One is called subscription and the other is called donation. I feel now there are activist organizations which are widely believed to be in journalism too, who ask for donations. And I think it's not a bad model at all. But there the problem is that I'm clearly donating to you because you have been very critical of a particular ideology. So I'm going to there is a pressure on them not to antagonize their base. Like, for example, if there's an organization which has taken on BJP, they can't suddenly write a commonsensical piece on Aadhaar. That will disappoint their subscribers. Now, for most of my life, I have worked in organization. In fact, my whole youth has been funded by subscribers. I used to be with Outlook and other places. There, we would get angry letters from subscribers saying, I hate this guy. I'm going to cancel my subscription. I'm going to cancel my subscription. Used to be a matter of pride for us. And when I used to work in Outlook, I was the only guy who was not married, so I would stay late. And I would get these calls from angry subscribers saying that we are not getting the magazine and all that. And I would just bang the phone down, So, now suddenly that journalism is in crisis, how precious subscribers are. In fact, when subscribers call, make fun of them. I'll have prank conversations with them. I'll tell them I'm a burglar. I was just stealing the computer and you called. What's your subscription number anyway? That kind of stuff. But now we treat them with a lot of... By the time I became an editor with Open, I was like, oh, that's a subscriber. That's a rare being, worship him. So I feel that there is what is happening right now is that if there are going to be only 4 major mobile phone brands, I'm asking, why should a country have 100 major news brands? Now, the point I'm trying to get at is that for a long time, we thought niche was something small. But I feel that today, niche can be something big as long as you are a niche. So a big organization like a New York Times or New Yorker would get general subscribers, but other organizations will get subscribers who are interested in a niche. But it doesn't mean these subscribers are 100. They could be hundreds of thousands who are interested in a particular niche. As long as they identify something with you, then you're on.
So what you're saying, it is definitely an improvement to the advertiser model, but far from perfect.
Yeah, see, even in the advertiser, yes, there is a problem with the advertiser model, theoretically, because these guys are your advertisers and there is a perception that you're not supposed to write anything against them. But, New York Times also gets advertisements. It depends on the culture of your country and your journalism, where you can say that, no, yeah, thank you for your advertisements, but we are going to do what we want to do. But then practically, editors have EMIs and they have many financial obligations and they are professionals. So they could come under pressure from their promoters saying that just go easy on them. We don't have to be actually very moralistic about things. So there is. So it is in that context. Advertising itself is not a flawed model, but human beings are a flawed model. So
they make it imperfect.
Yeah, and I feel that it's as corrupt. Donations are as corrupt as advertising model. That's what I'm trying to say.
How is that?
But not because if I'm going to donate to you because I like you, because you've been exposing, say, Amit Shah, okay, and then you are under a lot of pressure not to do any positive stories. When, for example, if you know that Rafael is not a scam, you're under pressure to just keep milking and making a particular kind of noises. You wouldn't have the
incentive to.
Not only that, you wouldn't even. The worst thing is when you start believing what you do is moral. That is what happens to activism eventually. And all these people do very well because because they are activists, they are, I think, smarter than journalists and they're better informed. And that's where they begin. And they have what is called a moral compass, which for some reason is very important for a lot of people. Though I feel that you shouldn't need a compass if you're a moral being. But then this is what got them the initial glory. So they're going to stick to it. So there is that corruption which comes with the donation model. It's great for individuals. I think it is great for a blogger or an individual who's not a foundation, who's not an organization, to go for donations. It can't corrupt you because you are what you are anyway. Everybody knows this is what you are. But for an organization, I think it could be as corrupt as the advertising model.
Madhu, your view?
I think the subscription model is a huge challenge, a bigger challenge than advertising because of the readership and viewership has now increasingly become interested in only reading or watching stuff that they agree with. And that then puts the person, the organization asking for this, for you to buy a subscription, that we have to please our subscribers. Now, the very basis of News Laundry subscription model is that we're not going to please advertisers, we're not going to please any government that's in power, and we're not going to please any bureaucrat, and we're going to try to cover both sides of every story. It's not that we can be objective, but certainly as
many sides as
many sides there are, and obviously if one side says it's raining, the other side says it's not, we still as journalists have to open our eyes and see that is it raining or not. We can't just put both sides in and be blind to it.
Now moving on to Gotra. First of all, when this whole Gotra thing happened, we were discussing what all should we discuss. So I said, first of all, what is Gotra? I should not seem so ignorant when we do the Hafta. So I present you Anand, who will first explain what is Gotra. Because so I can also understand, then we can discuss this Gotra debate.
Oh, unlike caste, which is endogamous entity, so Gotra is exogamous. So
in English, please.
Exogamous means it is a subgroup within caste, and you cannot marry within it. It would be considered incest.
Okay.
So this is a social distinction.
Based on what?
I am coming to that. So now historians are divided over the origins of it, but I am just putting 2-3 lines to sum up it. In Rig Veda refers to Gotra as Gotra. So cow pen, where all the cow herd, where people of the same community used to tie their cows. So the solidarity came from that.
Oh.
So Gotra Patra is the place, Yatra Tatra Gotra and go on. Now that has been contested by the time of Upanishads. Its origin has been derived from the 7 rishis of the Vedic period itself. That is interesting because Rig Veda says something else. So 7 rishis, and all are descendants of that. So
we are all descendants of one of these 7 rishis.
7 like Kastyap. Yes, that is. And now Panini, the Sanskrit grammarian, now he used Gotra for a different purpose, but let us. So basically, it is.
So basically, one of these rishis, and if that rishi is your daddy, then you can't marry within the same daddy's children. So then you have the same daddy. Basically, that's the deal. So there's 7 rishis. So that is where the whole thing Gotra comes from. So now let me start from the ladies this time, Manisha. There's this rhetoric that I don't believe in caste. I am so pure. भाई मैं तो नहीं मानता, बधाई हो आपको, लड्डू मिलने चाहिए उसके लिए. लेकिन ऐसे बहुत से लोग हैं जो स्कूल कॉलेज गए हैं जो कास्ट को नहीं मानते, जिनको गोत्रा पता ही नहीं था मेरा है क्या, है भी नहीं कि नहीं है. तो हम जैसे लोग बोलते हैं भाई इट्स इररेलेवेंट, कास्ट इज इररेलेवेंट, बट इलेक्टोरली इज इट रियली इररेलेवेंट? I mean, I'm sure young Rahul does not even know less than me about Gotra, but he has not contested by why are you telling my Gotra. So, but we keep judging this, and you know, holier than thou people like me, public school educated, make fun of this. But is it a fact, and should we just accept it and therefore negotiate our conversations around that it matters electorally? It doesn't matter what people like you sit at social.
Of course, it matters electorally, and that is like well established. That's nothing to be. And in fact, like most news debates...
But does media acknowledge that? Because media says, how can he say his caste?
No, so that's the funniest part. When this whole Gotra thing happened, it was front page news on Rajasthan Patrika. All India Today, CNN, everyone debated this issue. Rahul Kaval on his show had a Pandit also to explain. Yeah, like we have Anand, he called a Pandit. And all anchors started, they started their whole show with, why does it even matter? Why can't we talk about real issues? Why are we discussing Gotra? I mean, it's 2018. And then they went into a half an hour long conversation just debating Gotra and whether he is or he is not. So, I mean, of course, conversations can change and media can bring it back to what it should be, but it's not happening.
What is your view? Is there an inevitability to do it? Because even Brahminical privilege, which one was talking about, or white privilege, what the West talks about, it's a reality. If that is a reality for people like us, should not Gotra be a reality for people who have other kind of life experiences?
See, one thing that somebody who is born into a privileged position, whether it's caste or whether it's income, for them to, and it also connects with, like, if you have been privileged as in your education, in your background, and then you say, completely reject it and say, I'm going to be, live on the level same level as the people, which some communists do, or profess to do, but don't really do. I think you can never run away from your past that much. So I think both are similar in the sense that you can say, I reject my privilege. But it's just a simple thing that you can be, poor person can be poor, but you with your background and privilege will only be broke. Because you won't be poor, because getting out of that is extremely difficult. But with, say, a privileged background, you may have no money, but you have the means to get out of it. Where a poor person has limited means because of his background and lack of privilege. So for anyone of any caste to say, I reject it, it's kind of nice, but it's not effective. It's not realistic.
Would you vote
That's
for
also
a person
possible.
from not your community? In your Manu, go ahead.
See, there's something P. Sainath once said, I usually don't quote P. Sainath.
My God.
This is... Said, if you don't know your caste, you're probably upper caste.
Upper caste,
you know, so which is
that's
the only
exactly
funny
it.
thing I think he has said. And I think it is... It's probably not applicable outside posh people, you know, but it makes a lot of sense among these urban people who say, I reject caste, you know, because you obviously wouldn't if you're a Dalit, because it's too much of a cultural wound, right?
Now, coming to, since you've written, 3 novels, and I believe, like you said, one of them is being adapted for the screen. You were writing one for the screen, right? Last we met, when you were on that interview with Anand.
Yeah, I'm working on all of them, and in fact, it's...
All 3 books.
Yeah,
Illicit.
but yeah, when they have these kind of conversations, I feel that film and TV, they're very different ways of telling story, and I feel that novelists should not be very possessive of their form, and I think it's a mistake for them to believe that you have to stick to this. So I try to show them. I thought it's better for me to show them how it can be cinematic. Without...
But you leave it to them, finally.
I leave it to them, yeah.
Okay, so one of the things we want to discuss is, with the success of Sacred Games, there is a lot of... and apparently Prayag's book is also being made into...
How many have you seen Sacred Games? It's pretty much
almost everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone. So does it translate well into cinema or the visual, audiovisual medium? Or is there a compromise? So on that, let me start with you, Anand. I remember I don't know if this was true, because now that we're in the digital age, now I'm questioning everything I was told as a child. Did R.K. Lakshman actually say that he was unhappy with Guide, or is it just
he
something
called it a bastard child or something like that. He was very unhappy.
But who told you? Did Nehru tell you?
R.K. Narayan.
But it was actually Guide was actually a very bad book.
Sorry, R.K. Narayan. Okay, yeah. So, do you think there is this, again, an inevitability to the writer feeling dissatisfied, or depending on how creative you are? If you're a really creative person, you would have imagined it some way, and someone not as creative as you will do it another, and you'll be left dissatisfied.
Just on some fact, R.K. Narayan was very annoyed. He, in fact, wrote an essay, Misguided Guide, about how Devanand took him for a ride in this.
Obviously, he says, my guide never walked sideways, and Devanand only walked sideways.
So I think the problem, I asked Manu in the interview also, the more fundamental problem is, how do you depict thought in a film? Now, the standard Indian practice is to have the actor talking to the mirror. Now, that is idiotic. Mirror talks back, or some shadows talking to you. So the severest limitation of visual media in converting a work of fiction is depiction of thought as thought. So, and the appeal of a lot of works of literature is that. What the character was thinking
rather than doing.
Sure. And you have to show.
What do you think, Manu? Is it are you waiting to be disappointed with what they do to your book?
Well, I have written one film earlier, and in fact, it was not even based on my short story. It was a film that I co-wrote, and when I went to watch the film, I thought, oh, I've come to some other hall. For the first 8 minutes, I didn't identify.
What
because
film
it's
was
such
that?
It's called Love Khichdi, and I was 25, and it was supposed to be my biography, but it was not. So it's a director's medium, So he is going to interpret what you have written the way he can, and depending on the funds that he has got. Now, the thing about novel is actually a lot of novelists, I'm very surprised, don't say it because they're in the business of truth. A novel is a completely bullshit depiction of life, in the sense that what happens in a novel is exactly not how we live. For example, in Serious Men begins with, there is something called the point of view of a character. You know what is said because I'm trying to tell you this is what is going on in the character's mind. He's walking on the beach, and he appears to suggest that he has a side parting, and that parting is very blurred, like the border between the border that British used to draw between two hostile neighbors. This is not how a guy is going to think when he's walking on the Wadley Sea face. He's not going to say, I have a side parting, and this parting is very, very, very ambiguous, like the border between India and Pakistan. No, that is not how we think. So it is a trick. It is a medium. It is almost like a separate language, which tries to convince you that this is like. Now, what goes on in the character is not how we live. While a film, I would say, is almost slightly more anthropological in the sense that they can't play with the thought. They have to show what is possible, So it's a one whole dimension is not available to cinema. So I'm someone who I find that very interesting, and that's what makes it interesting for me.
I think before I come to Madhu, I think both of them have their pros and cons, and of course there is the more realistic cinema, whatever one may say about it. But there are certain things which you can do in cinema which don't seem weird until you really think about it. Devanand being one. That a person, if you were talking to normally, forget finding him attractive, you wouldn't even find him normal, that each time he said something, he did this 5 times before he said it. He would say, dude, there's something wrong with you, go away. Or if you said, come here, he said, yeah. He turned this way and then he came like this. You think he's weird. In a book, if you wrote, and as he walked with his hands dangling to his left, walking shoulder first, you'd think the guy's mad. But in cinema, that can be style. So I think both have the certain realism that you can demonstrate in cinema, and certain fantasy, and certain that you can do in books.
No, what I'm trying to say is the very substance of a novel is based on an improbable way of thinking.
Let's get that question.
It's from Rituparna Sengupta. She says, I just returned from the Kisan Mukti March. Apart from the several mostly independent media houses that had arrived to cover the event, there were also lots of students who had turned up with their smartphones to speak to the farmers directly and record their testimonies. Do you think it's time that consumers of news also become producers of news? Are we moving towards crowdfunding and the very production of news? And not just the economics of it. And she says, I'm not speaking of individual blog posts here.
All this is happening.
No, I don't think
citizens
consumers should become producers of. I do think there's a certain.
It's happening. You can't control it.
No, I mean, of course, everyone's a blogger. Everyone writes stuff. But I do think news has a certain method to it. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, we've had that experience. I do think you need a little bit of. Where it didn't work when we asked citizens to send us.
Yeah.
And they actually, there was a problem because the basis of one being getting both sides, being impartial, getting the facts, and, all that which comes with basic training in journalism, we found that missing, so it became difficult.
So yeah, we tried that. I personally don't think it. What they call, what's the term? What generated content? Not citizen, something generated content. What is it?
User generated.
US generated. UGC. Like UGC, I've attended a lot of these seminars, so they throw terms like that. And मेरे लिए तो UGC was UGC program नहीं, what is it? University Grants Commission. मैंने कहा UGC
afternoon program.
User generated content. I said, oh, अच्छा. So news cannot be UGC in my view. There are certain filters that have been put in place. most importantly, because management get sued their asses off. So no. But I think on social media is a good place for it to start, like Neda, the Iranian girl. You know, I mean, we've moved from social media causes revolution from the Arab Spring to bloody shut down Facebook and Google or GRPS, jo bhi hai. Like within 5 years. When was Arab Spring? It's been like 3 years? So you see how fast they've gone from...
More.
6 years?
So it was in 2011.
So it's from 2011, 2018, you know, it's social media has gone from hero to villain. So I think there are certain filters that are imperative, and like Madhu said, comes with training, and they're legal issues. So no, I don't think you can. You have a view on that? User-generated content for news?
I have the second story theory, in the sense that there are a lot of debut novelists who wrote good debut novels, and then because they were actually memoir writers, they wrote their own story, then they didn't have a second novel. Similarly, there's a lot of, in fact, users can generate great content, you know, but it'll be that one story because either they know it, but the second story is what they can't, because that is when the professional kicks in. You know, when something is your livelihood, you do it very differently for various reasons. In fact, that was also the difference between Anna Hazare and Arvind Kejriwal, or even Anna Hazare and Manmohan Singh when he was around. Anna Hazare, after his fast and then orange juice, and then it's time to end the fast, he says, I'm going back. I found that very funny, and I found it strange that nobody took objection to the fact that Anna Hazare is now going back. Like, going back from where? What? You know, his revolution is over, but Manmohan Singh is not going back anywhere. But Manmohan Singh had to run the organization. So that was the professional. Whatever flaws you can obviously see in a professional is going to be there, because that's what you do.
Very well put. Yes.
You know, so I feel that there is a place. I feel that what the user-generated content, as it's called, is showing journalism, is that, but you have to be much smarter than that. In fact, what activists have also shown journalists is that you need to up the game. You know, like otherwise, journalism will be taken over by people who can do some things better than you. You know.
Thank you, first of all, for all of you coming here and making the effort. We're going to have like at least one subscriber event a month in 2019, and in different cities. So those of you who actually tweeted to me saying like, why is it in Delhi? This time we'll be traveling across the country. We'll have one subscriber in every city. So thank you all for coming and for your support and your subscription and encouraging words. News Laundry has been a struggle from the word go, and it still is. I'd like to acknowledge the team who works tirelessly to try to make this news operation sustainable and successful. Also, thank you critics who, you know, tweet to us and write to us. We have so many emails who tell us what's wrong, how to fix it, and you're pretty uninhibited with your criticism, and that's good. And we appreciate that, so keep those mails coming in. Thank you haters who say abhi gandu hai kya on Twitter, because without you it wouldn't be half as much fun as you make it. And hopefully News Laundry will continue to grow as long as you keep subscribing. Mufat Khors, this goes out to you. Stop being such bloody conjuices. If you can spend 300 on a packet of cigarettes or on a beer, pay for news. It may save your life one day. On that note, thank you all. Until next week, Angrez apna lagan aur News Laundry apna hafta kabhi nahi chhodenge. Pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. See you next week. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sun liya Afrika, Mufat Khoro. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.